LiberNovo just released two brand new chairs, the Omni Pro and the Omni SE, and I'm really excited to be checking them out today. So the original LiberNovo Omni was my favorite chair that came out last year. It started as a Kickstarter campaign that raised over $10 million, and it really became a viral success right out the gate. I've been using it as my daily driver ever since my review, and while I do regularly need to switch out my chairs to test out new ones, the Omni has always been the chair that I keep coming back to. Well, LiberNovo went back, looked at all the feedback from reviewers and customers, and came back with two new versions. And from what I've seen so far, they actually listened, addressing many of the main issues that people had with the chair. So in this video, we'll be taking a look at both of these new models. Now, this isn't going to be a full review since I haven't had enough time to fully test out each chair, but full reviews of both are definitely coming. What I do want to do today though is go through exactly what changed from the original Omni, what's brand new on each model, and which one makes the most sense for you. But before we get into it, LiberNovo did send me both of these chairs to review, and I will have affiliate links for both of them down in the description. So if you find this video helpful and want to check them out, please consider using those links. It really helps support the channel at no extra cost to you. Alright, so before we talk about what separates the Pro from the SE, I want to go through the quality of life changes that both of these chairs got over the original LiberNovo Omni. Because there are actually quite a few of them, and a lot of them directly address the criticisms from my original review. Now, one thing worth noting before we get into these, none of these upgrades are currently on the original LiberNovo Omni. But given that these upgrades made it onto the SE, which is supposed to be the more affordable version of the Omni, it's pretty safe to assume that LiberNovo will eventually roll these out into a V2 of the original LiberNovo Omni as well. So with that said, the first upgrade is the reclining backrest. The original Omni had 4 tilt limiter positions at 105 degrees, 120 degrees, 135 degrees, and 160 degrees. Both the Pro and the SE replaced that 120 degree position with 2 new angles at 115 and 125 degrees. So now you have 5 positions total. Now honestly, I actually really like the positions on the original Omni, but having more control over the locking increments is always a welcomed upgrade. The jump from 105 to 120 degrees could feel a little bit abrupt, so breaking that up into 115 and 125 gives you much more gradual, precise range to work with. Overall, this is going to be a pretty minor change on paper, but in practice, it does make that middle range of recline feel a little bit more dialed in. Now moving on to the headrest, this actually got a pretty significant upgrade across the board. You now have a lot more range of motion in every direction: height, depth, and tilt angle. The overall travel in each of those areas is noticeably extended compared to the original, so it can accommodate a wider range of body types and sitting positions a lot more easily. Now, if you watched my original Omni review, I thought the headrest on the Omni was already the best I've ever used on any office chair. So this is basically making something that was already great even better. More adjustability means it works for a wider range of people and sitting positions, which is always a good thing. It goes significantly lower in the lowest position, which is good for shorter people, and significantly higher in the highest position for taller people. So overall, this is a really good upgrade. Now the next upgrade is with the armrest, particularly with the height adjustment. Now this is a huge one for me personally. The armrest height travel went from 80 millimeters to 96 millimeters, and the lowest position was dropped by 20 millimeters. Now, one of the biggest frustrations I mentioned in my original Omni review was that the armrest just didn't go low enough. And because of that, they would constantly prop my shoulders up slightly, which is fine for shorter sessions, but gets really fatiguing over time. I also couldn't get them out of the way or push them under my desk when I didn't need them. This upgrade directly addresses that. Now, it may look like a subtle change, but it really makes a huge difference in my day-to-day use. The next thing that got upgraded is the seat. The seat front edge got a denser foam with a slightly raised contour. This upgrade also directly addresses something that I flagged in my original review. On the original Omni, the foam at the front of the seat was really soft, and at times it could feel like you were kind of sliding off of the seat. And if you have longer legs, this was especially noticeable because that front foam would kind of just compress under your legs without really giving you much support. The denser foam and raised contour on both the Pro and the SE makes a real difference. Now you just feel a lot more locked into the seat. This basically completely fixed the issues I had with kind of sliding off of the seat, even when I'm sitting with my legs crossed. So overall, this was a really big upgrade in my opinion. And finally, both upper and lower joints on the lumbar mechanisms were slightly repositioned for a smoother, more responsive adjustment arc. On the original Omni, the recline was already pretty smooth, but you definitely could feel some friction from plastic rubbing on plastic. Now it feels significantly smoother throughout the full recline range. Not the biggest upgrade here, but definitely noticeable. So with the Omni Pro and SE, you're really getting a lot of quality of life changes that really add up. Many of these changes are subtle, but really make a huge difference in daily use. And what I appreciate the most is that these upgrades really show that LiberNovo is actively paying attention to customer feedback. Most of these fixes directly addressed issues that I and other reviewers called out in our original reviews. That's pretty reassuring to see from a company that's still relatively new. Alright, so now let's get into what makes the Pro the Pro. Now, after spending a ton of time with the original Omni, one of my main complaints was the heat buildup. Because you kind of sink into those soft foam layers, there's just not a ton of airflow, and during long sessions, it could get really warm while sitting in the chair. And the Omni Pro seems like it's LiberNovo's answer to that problem. The big headline feature on the Pro is what they're calling airflow mode. It's an active seat ventilation system built directly into the chair. The active airflow seat ventilation uses a centrifugal fan system to pull heat and moisture away from the body through the seat cushion. This creates continuous airflow circulation for a cooler and more comfortable sitting experience. You get 2 airflow levels, and there are built-in sensors that automatically pause the fan when you get up and resume them when you sit back down. And the whole system runs off of a 3000 mAh battery, which gives you 14 plus hours on low and about 9 hours on high. That should be more than enough for a full day of work without needing to plug anything in. Now, I haven't done a full long-term test yet, so I'll save the deep dive on how effective it actually feels for the full review. But on paper and in early use, this is exactly what the Omni needed. On top of the ventilation, the Pro also gets a significant upgrade in materials. The base switches from a glass fiber reinforced nylon on the original to a one-piece die-cast aluminum alloy 5-star base. No welds, no seams, it looks a lot cleaner and feels more substantial. Now, there's definitely nothing wrong with the nylon base on the original in terms of durability, but this new aluminum base does make the chair feel a bit more refined. The upholstery also gets upgraded to Danish Gabriel Atlantic fabric, which is sourced from Gabriel, one of Denmark's most respected performance textile manufacturers. It's rated at 100,000 to 120,000 Martindale cycles, which essentially just means that it's going to be a very durable fabric that's going to hold up for years. For context, the original Omni uses a standard olefin fabric that I mentioned was pretty thin and a potential long-term durability concern. So this is a pretty meaningful step up on that front. One huge improvement that this premium fabric has over the original is the breathability. There is very little heat buildup with this fabric compared to the fabric on the original Omni. And this also pairs really well with that air ventilation feature, which makes the chair as a whole significantly cooler to sit in during long sessions. The Pro comes in 2 different color options, Graphite and Glacier. These colors are going to be pretty similar to the original Omni, but overall I think they look really clean and sleek. So with that said, who is the Pro really for? If heat buildup was your main hesitation on the original Omni, then the Pro is the direct fix. The combination of the Gabriel Atlantic fabric, which is more breathable on its own, and the active ventilation system basically eliminates that heat issue entirely. If you're someone who tends to run warm during long sessions, or if you just want the most premium version of this chair with upgraded materials across the board, then the Pro is the one to look at. But with that said, now let's talk about the SE, and honestly, this might even be more exciting to me than the Pro. And here's why. In my original Omni review, one of my main criticisms was the motorized lumbar support. And I said pretty clearly that while it was kind of cool as a backstretch tool, I wouldn't buy the Omni for that feature. I found it had a niche use case, it didn't really work that well as an actual adjustable lumbar support, and more importantly, it's an electronic component with a shorter warranty period, which is a real long-term liability in a chair that you're expecting to last for years. I even specifically said in my review that I would love to see LiberNovo offer a version without the electronics at a lower price. Well, they listened, and the SE is pretty much exactly that. The main difference between the SE and the other models is the lumbar support. Instead of an electric motor, the SE uses a precision screw driving mechanism. You get the same core lumbar architecture, the same bionic flex fit backrest, just manual control via a knob on the side. And for most people, I think this is the right call. You set your lumbar support once, and then you just don't really need to touch it again. Now, having the electronics to do that for you sounds impressive, but it does add complexity without much practical benefit for everyday use. And since there are no electronic components in the lumbar, you don't have to worry about that potentially being a point of failure down the road. It's peace of mind that honestly matters a lot when you're investing this much money into a chair that's supposed to last you for years. And just as a reminder, the SE still gets all those shared upgrades that we talked about earlier, including the 5-position backrest. So the actual recline angles that you're going to get on the SE are identical to what you're going to get on the Pro. Now, in terms of what you don't get, the SE is not going to get the airflow ventilation, the aluminum base, or the Gabriel Atlantic fabric. It keeps the glass fiber reinforced nylon base and the standard olefin fabric from the original Omni. When it comes to color options, the SE only comes in one color, which is obsidian, and I really like the way it looks. Now, if you compare it to the midnight black version of the original Omni, you can see that the obsidian is a much deeper black. It honestly looks really sleek in my opinion. And in my opinion, black is the most versatile color for an office chair, so not having multiple options isn't really a big deal for most people. So who is the Omni SE for? The SE gives you all of the comfort and adjustability of the LiberNovo Omni without the electronics at a lower price point. Now, LiberNovo told me that the SE would be priced a few $100s less than the original Omni, which is a big deal. At that price, the value here is really hard to argue with. I said in my original review that I wouldn't buy the Omni for the electronic lumbar support. I'd buy it because it's just a really good chair. The SE is pretty much everything I said I wanted. All of the fundamentals are there, and you're not paying for features that you're unlikely to use. I feel like for a lot of people, this is going to be the sweet spot. So which one should you actually get? Let's just quickly break it down. Both the Pro and the SE are getting the same quality of life improvements over the original Omni. The 5-position backrest, the better neck support range, more armrest travel, the reinforced seat front edge, and the smoother lumbar adjustment arc. Those upgrades alone are already huge improvements over the original LiberNovo Omni. Now, the difference is kind of in those extra features. The Pro adds active seat ventilation, an aluminum base, and the Gabriel Atlantic fabric. That's the chair for you if you run hot, want the most premium build, and are willing to pay a little bit more for it. The SE drops the electronic lumbar support in favor of a manual screw-driven mechanism, no ventilation, and keeps the standard base and fabric. That's the chair if you want the core Omni experience with the adjustability improvements at a more accessible price. Now, LiberNovo hasn't officially confirmed exact pricing yet, but based on what they've shared, the SE should be priced a few $100s less than the original Omni, and the Pro will sit above the Omni as kind of their premium option. I'll have links to both of these chairs down in the description as soon as they're available. And full reviews of each of these chairs are coming once I've had more time to properly test them, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss those. And if you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button because it really helps support the channel a lot.